1984, I'm going to say it was. I was looking at the back of a Marvel comic book, and there was a poster for a movie I had never heard of. And most of the movies I'd heard of course, you know, were kind of spoon-fed to me through commercials and stuff like that. I have marketing campaigns that were very, very large. This movie just came out of nowhere, and it looked badass, and it didn't say anything except it said everything at once. It just looked different. So I was looking forward to this movie for a long time. Kept trying to find out when it would come out. We didn't have the internet back then. We had like Fangoria and Starlog and the Encyclopedia Britannica. And they weren't talking about this movie yet. So it was tough to get information on it. And then eventually it just never shut up. I'd go to the Middletown movie theater every week. I'd be like, you guys getting this movie called Buckaroo Banzai? And they'd look at you strange. Never wound up showing up. One day I was at the Video Movie House in Atlantic Highlands, and there was a poster, the same poster that was at the back of the comic book hanging up on the wall for Buckaroo Banzai. And I ran to the counter, I was like, when the fuck is this movie coming out? I was 14, so I probably didn't say fuck yet. I said, when is this movie coming out? And they were like, well, clearly it says, well, I guess it was December, I forget what the date was. And I was like, first off, can I have this poster? And they're like, no, we just put it up. I was like, can I put my name down on a list to get this poster when you guys are done with it? And they're like, okay. I said, is there a list for the movie? And they're like, there will be now, I guess. I said, put me right at the top. He's like, I get it. And I would come into the Video Movie House and ask constantly. The month of December never had a date, so I'd come, I think it was December it came out. I would come in, whatever that month was, for every fucking day and just be like, hey man, is it in yet? No. Is it in yet? No. Finally, they gave me a call and I took it home. Now, expectation is high for a movie like that. You know, I waited for it. I, at this point, had the poster. When I came to get the video, they also gave me the poster. They were so fucking sweet there. Had it up on my wall, went and sat down to watch it. You've just watched this movie. So most of you have probably seen it. Maybe some of you haven't. There are many weird, wonderful movies that we've all seen by this point in our lives. 1984, I'm 14 years old. This is the most weird and wonderful thing I've ever seen. It is a movie that defies every possible genre and convention of the genre that it pretends to dance with. This movie is so fucking individual. It just sweeps you off your feet. I was just taken away. It's a movie that does not conform to any traditional storytelling that you're used to from years of watching movies. It doesn't give a shit whether you know what's going on or not. It dumps you right into the middle of an existing universe that things have happened in before, and the movie accepts the fact that, hey, our audience might be bright enough to catch up, and when they do, they'll really enjoy it. If not, they're just going to be like stupefied by everything that's going on. Maybe they'll catch it second time, you know. It takes you weird, wonderful places that few films that I'd ever seen at that point in my life, certainly, and even to this day, have ever done. By virtue of that, there's no better definition or label for this movie, if you have to put a label on it, than art film. This is a true piece of art, man. It doesn't give a fuck what you bring to the table. It brings itself to the table and says, figure it out, you know? And then it doesn't go like, oh, we'll spoon feed you a happy ending to make you feel good about it and make you feel like, oh, I've spent my time wisely. At the end of the movie, these credits start rolling, everyone starts going like, is it done? Did they win? You know? I think they won, you know, what was the so what big deal? What is that? I don't understand. And it doesn't care, it never made up for it. Like, this is a movie that I've been following now for years, since 1984. Oh, this is a true original and inspiring, man. Everything I've ever done in my life has always tried to live up to this. The moment I finished watching that movie, my brain turned off the mainstream and I started looking at other movies, you know? Like, this was the same year as Back to the Future, I believe, which is a weird, wonderful mainstream movie with great 3-act structure, fantastic story, not knocking it at all, but has that happy ending and you can pretty much see where it's going sometimes. This movie came out same fucking year, deals in weird interdimensional travel and shit like that, but is so far at the other end of the spectrum that it stays, Back to the Future may stay here, this stays here forever. You know, it just comes in and goes with you. Everything you do infects the art. It's almost like seeing it was like Banzai getting the call and getting hit by that shock and suddenly he was a changed man. Same for me. It's influenced everything I've done, right down to the fact as I was sitting in the back watching it, I own a fucking bus now as well, you know? Really weird, and it's got to come from this movie. Sitting in the back, I was enjoying myself. I'd never seen it on a big screen. It was fantastic. I was sitting there saying lines along with it. I remember being 14. This is one of those movies you showed to all your friends, and then you started imitating it. One of the first movies, along with Raising Arizona, that I started doing dialogue from, dropping lines from. This was a movie that was pop culture, referencing pop culture. Like at one point they talk about, Orson Welles in the War of the Worlds broadcast. And it transformed me. That's why we're talking about it tonight. But let's talk to two people without whom this movie doesn't exist. You met him briefly before we got started. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Buckaroo Banzai himself, Peter Wells. And I just, right now, I was standing in the back watching the credits, wiping sweat off, getting ready to come down, and somebody said, Kevin, and I looked over, and I almost had a fucking heart attack, because it was Roberta Muldoon from The World According to Gar, but we all know him much, much better as Lord John Wharfen. Give it up for John Lithgow. There's something we never saw in the movie, the hug. Wow, this movie still packs a punch, man, and there are a bunch of things we could talk about. I'm not going to make you come over here so you don't have to look over your shoulder. But let's begin with the first moment you guys get the script. It's got to make an impact. I mean, I'd be so disappointed if you're like, I don't remember. Like, it's one of these scripts that you got to open and be like, Jesus Christ, this could ruin everything.
Well, that's pretty accurate. I was completely bewildered by it and had no idea what to make of it. And I didn't agree. I didn't really want to do it. It was way too out there for me. But I sat and met with W.D. Richter, Rick Richter, and Earl Mac Rauch, and they were so enthusiastic and exhilarating. They completely sold me on it in like no time at all. Like the minute I met them, I thought these guys are going to be so much fun to work with. And in fact, I remember Rick even saying that. He said, just do this movie. Either it won't work and it'll be nothing, or it'll be really, really interesting. And I thought, well, that's a good philosophy of life. And I signed on and immediately started loving it as we gradually put it together.
And did they go after you? They were thinking specifically about you, I think I'd read somewhere from the jump.
Yeah.
Based on what, do you think? What did they see you in?
He said, of all things, I was in a very little, kind of very naturalistic movie that was made in New York in the late 70s called Rich Kids. And I just played a kind of anguished, foolish, divorcing father of a daughter, of a young daughter.
Yeah, I can see the influence here.
Absolutely. He was very earnest, he was kind of a comical, foolish character, but it was very earnest, real, it was not unlike me at all. And he said, "That's my Lazardo." What does that mean? But tell us about your first look at it.
No, I felt the same way. Richter came after me. I guess he seen me in Shoot the Moon, and I read it and I couldn't get through it. I mean, it was like reading an almanac or something. And I didn't. But your panegyric for the film, I have to say, is one of the. It's one of the most articulate. Not just because I'm in the movie or John's in the movie. It's one of the most beautiful summations of the film ever. Because I have to say, at the end of the day, one of the guns of 20th Century Fox called a meeting for me when the movie was about to come out, and I said, well, I'm going to promote it, so what? But another said they wanted to meet, and I sat with this woman, and she said, in your opinion, how should we market this film? And I knew that it was by that it was a great film, but that Fox had no clue what this film was. But no, I didn't quite understand it. They came after me like John, but once you met the writer of it, Earl Mac Rauch, who's a real savant. He was a summa cum laude at MIT in engineering, and he wore his little buzz cut, and he wore these marine pants and red Converse All-Stars, drove around in a pickup truck with a golden retriever, with big sort of convex glasses on, and you never knew what was coming out of his mouth. Then I knew, the sort of genius of it, but I didn't understand it, and I don't quite understand it to this day. And I think you explain it, because it's a genre defier, really. Is it a comedy?
Yes.
What is it, an action adventure? What is it, a science fiction thing? I don't know what it is.
That's what's beautiful about it. It's like column A, column B. It's basically Fat Man's Delight, because it's a buffet of movies. There's everything you get to pick from. A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah, but I agree, Peter. Listening to Kevin talk about it, I felt like I'm so proud to be in a film that would have that kind of impact on you, and you standing in for thousands and thousands of freaks.
Yeah.
I wish I had a nickel for how many times I've been asked to say, "Laugh while you can, monkey boy!"
My favorite, hands down, that I would always do with my friends, quiet moments, we'd be in class doing a test, you'd be sitting down, their head down, and you go, "Hey, Banzai, take a look at your girlfriend." That's how I learned Italian, was watching that movie.
I have to point out, did you see in the credits scroll at the end, my dialect coach? This almost defines the movie. My dialect coach was this tailor in the costume department down there at Sony. And whenever he had fit my clothes a few times, named Roberto Terminelli, and he had this fantastic accent, and all I did was go down and have him record my part. Never acted in his life, or coached any dialect.
You did? You had him record it? You put him on?
Yeah. I want to hear you say these things. And he was quiet, and I got him that credit. I got him.
This is strange to me. Because I live in Italy, and I now, I didn't then, but I speak fluent Italian, and whenever I sort of, I get the latest DVD in the mail and so forth, and I look at that, and it's always curious to me, like, who gave Lithgow this fantastic accent? And I'm wondering who this Roberto guy is. I never heard of him again. I never heard of him ever coaching anyone, or, in the realm of filmmaking. And now I find out he's the friggin' costumer in the basement.
It was the high point of his career.
He's the dude that gave you your tie, man. He put that tie on Buckaroo Banzai, and he gave Orphan an accent, or Lazardo rather, an accent. Do you get approached by Italian people who are like, "Fuck you"?
Actually, in Paris, I was walking down Saint-Germain in Paris, and there was this kind of intense-looking man who saw me pass by, and our eyes met. He passed me by, and then he ran back and overtook me and stopped me. He says, "My name is Cesare Ferrari. I'm your voice in Italian movies." And he had this desperate look, like, "What are you going to do more movies?" It's amazing to think that he dubbed Buckaroo Banzai.
Maybe he did it in a really bad American accent.
He dubbed it in English.
The writer, how do you pronounce the writer's name? I've never known how to say it. I've said
Earl Mac Rauch.
Earl Mac Rauch. And what did you guys call him? Earl Mac Rauch?
Mac.
Yeah.
This, I've read a lot about him on the internet as much as I could find and whatnot. This was a dude who was working on several different scripts for several different Buckaroo Banzai. First it was Buckaroo Bandy, and then I think it was what's his name, W.D. Richter, what do you guys call him? Rick. He was the one that suggested call it Buckaroo Banzai, and then it kind of, they started building the Western theme up around it. He wrote, according to what I read, several different screenplays, started a bunch and wouldn't finish any of them, would start and then let it just stop. And he kept expanding a universe that nobody knew about, which I always loved. Like when I remember seeing this movie on video and going out and searching for the novelization because I saw it listed somewhere, and the novel that I guess he had written himself was so dense and so packed and filled in so many questions that anybody that loved the movie might not have known about, and also whetted your appetite for shit like how do I Jean is coming next, the guy that killed Peggy and stuff like that, and then it never fucking came. But I remember being entranced by the story because it doesn't go any place you want it to. It won't conform at all. Was he around? Was the writer around on the set the whole time?
Yeah, and going back to that lunch when they persuaded me to do it. They were full of all these other stories. They had clearly created this extremely complicated backstory and things that were going to happen. My impression, I don't know whether I'm right or not, but I think they were Dartmouth roommates or something.
I remember reading that as well.
And that they used to just kind of riff on Buckaroo Banzai stories.
The story that I read online was one of them, W.D. had read a book that Earl Mac Rauch had written, and he liked it, and he saw he was from Dartmouth, and he reached out to him, he was like, hey man, I'm from Dartmouth too. And then Dartmouth, sorry. I'm the guy before, it was like Lithgow. So he reached out to him, they became friends, and then they started talking about screenwriting, and they started talking about the creation of this character, and it went on for years. Until I guess W.D. had taken off or gotten a career in the business, and they said, come on out, and they started working on this slowly.
I think he wrote New York.
Yeah.
The screenplay of that.
Earl or Rick?
Earl, yeah. He was really a mind like a trap, man. He was a genius head. I had a couple of lunches with him, and he was around. He had engineering stuff, and he'd done an entire tour of the Bible Belt tent revivals for 2 summers and was taking notes on writing a comedy about Bible Belt tent revivals. Just astounding guy. And he was also unedited. You had to be very careful diplomatically. The powers that be had to be careful about where he was because he would say anything to anyone. And this company was owned essentially or financed by the Hunt brothers at the time before they tried to corner the silver market. And they made Mr. Mom, War Games, and this film. He's actually a hick from East Texas. I mean, he's a small town outside of Pecos, Texas. Is where he's from.
It's weird. It's like the movie is a snapshot of inside the dude's head, but not the entire thing, just a little section. Yeah. And you get the distinct impression that a few more snapshots would make everything clear, but you only get this quick view, and then you're quickly out again. And it just leaves you wanting more because of it. Did you have to jump through hoops to play the lead, or they went right to you?
No, I was considering doing another film, and for less money, but another studio film, and they did essentially with John. They sat me down several times and said, well, look, guys, I don't get this film. Can you tell me what it is? And they just said, well, pick a conglomeration of who you think is extraordinary in the world, and that's what it's about. So essentially, I sort of modeled this guy after Jacques Cousteau and Adam Ant. And that's, my blueprint for doing Buckaroo Banzai. But no, I had to be convinced. I was like, John, it's like reading truly, a scientific almanac.
But they were very interested in what we suggested.
Yeah, they took all the suggestions.
They had this thing that Lazardo fed off Twinkies and electricity.
Yeah.
And so I came up with the idea of the shock wigs, as if his wigs, and we talked about his metabolism having gotten fucked up since the 1930s, when his body was inhabited, when the Italian, I sort of mixed Enrico Fermi and Mussolini, and with a fucked up metabolism. So that I had to wear 2 of everything because I was cold all the time. And of course, we shot Yo-Yo Dine in East Los Angeles in August.
is horrible. Speaking of Mussolini, the thing I loved about your speech, his great speech at the end, is truly one of the cleverest things I've ever seen on a film. Character is who you are in the dark. That's just, but that thing that you do that is actually Mussolini, where you say something and and he loves it, he loves what he said, and Mussolini does that.
Yeah, and not in a But I did check him out. I had a look at some Mussolini footage.
Yeah, it's wonderful stuff, man. Wonderful. And I have to say once again, I could not, I don't know if John remembers this, but you didn't see it in the close-ups somewhat, but in that scene where they're shocking me, I had not been this far away from John's face while he is like regurgitating this Martian Italian nonsense at me, but in the back, remember Christopher Lloyd was eating Fritos. And I could not do a close-up, man. I think they did 50 takes of my reverse on that, man. And I laughed myself out of the shot. I couldn't stand it.
It was laughter all the time.
Yeah,
we were just laughing ourselves silly.
Yeah.
It's an amazing scene that really encapsulates that movie, because there is that moment where, you give that fucking speech and it's rousing and it's like funny and terrifying, and it ends with, where are we going? Planet 10. When are we going? Real soon. I remember showing that to friends, and so like you really figure out who you want to hang out with by watching Buckaroo Banzai. Because if you're watching it with friends who are like, that's fucking stupid, you're like, get out. Because it becomes religion to you.
Actually, there is a moment in the film, the moment when Chris Lloyd gives me the finger. And of course, everybody's looking at Chris Lloyd giving me the finger. But if you look at me, I'm getting my helmet and kissing it and hiding the fact that I'm laughing. Get a good look next time, the next several times.
Yeah, God, he was funny, wasn't he? God, he is funny, but he was so funny.
And those poor schmucks, they were stuck in those masks. We had to, we would have lunch with them and have long conversations. We sort of got used to it.
Yeah.
But it was so hilarious.
And those are funny guys. Danny Hedaya and Vincent Schiavelli, bless his heart, is not with us any longer, but those are really funny guys too. The whole cast was just giftedly funny.
When you're shooting something like this, about how far into it are you like, man, I made a huge mistake? Or are you committed the whole way in? Or are you just like, you know what, man, I'm going with it?
I gotta say, I've only made one film where I thought, wow, this was a huge mistake, but this is certainly not it at all. I mean,
Right.
From the jump, once I said yes and I came out to LA to do it, it was a rocket ride. It was just the most fun, some of the most fun I've ever had, ever. So there's never a doubt that. Look, here's the thing, a great thing I just want to say. Sidney Lumet, I did my third film with Sidney Lumet, and I had done my second film, and it was also for the 20th century, Butch and Cassidy, the early years, which is a prequel to Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid.
You played LaForest. Didn't you play LaForest?
I played LaForest. I played Joe LaForest, the guy who are those guys? Who are those guys? Also with Christopher Lloyd, who's a friend of mine from the theater, as John is a friend of too. And I was talking to Lumet before I started the film, and he said, how's the movie? And I said, well, I hear it's a dog, it's a piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. And Sidney Lumet, I learned so many things from him, but he's a man of great integrity. He said, listen, I just want to tell you, I know you're young and so forth, but I'm not talking down to you, but do not let the experience, do not let the marketing or the success financially of a film ever invalidate the richness of the film you made. Don't be one of those people. Because if you had a great time making Butch and Sundance the early years, which I did, don't naysay it later on and jump into the critical bit. And I learned that from this. And by this film, I kind of let that go. I know that's out of my hands, do the best I can. They're gonna market it, it'll be a success or not a success. But as a young actor, I was falling into that thing, well, if it's not gonna be a hit, then I'm gonna be one of those, air suckers who kind of denigrates his own shit. And I'm glad Lumet gave me that lesson, so. The film takes on a life of its own, and this one certainly did. I had a ball doing it.
But I had, halfway through it, I thought we had made something huge. I thought this was going to be Star Wars size.
It was, and it's a quiet way. It is.
Maybe Star Wars, but I just thought it was going to be, it blew people's minds so big time. I thought everybody was going to respond the way you respond. And You know, I don't know how much you know about the whole backstage of the release of the film.
Oh, Jesus, tell us, please.
It got absolutely dropped between two regimes at Fox.
Is that what ultimately happened?
Yeah,
It was pitched to one regime?
Because it came out just when one gang was gone and Barry Diller's gang was coming in.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that they didn't know what it was or what to do with it. You know, I completely believe that they were asking you how to market it. But the other thing is, the producers themselves at the high level didn't know what they had. To me, the most telling fact about this whole film and its lack of conventional success is the fact that David Begelman, who was truly in charge, he was our executive producer, one of Hollywood's great scoundrels, he was our producer, and about 2 or 3 weeks into the film, he insisted that the DP be changed, the cinematographer. We started out with Jordan Cronenweth.
Yeah, one of the geniuses.
One of the geniuses.
Yeah.
And Rick had always wanted...
Blade Runner, anybody see that?
And look at the film. The scenes that you can tell which scenes he shot. He shot the great nightclub scene.
Yeah.
Remember, wherever you go, there you are. And you can see the difference between that and the whole rest of the film. Begelman said, no, we're going way wrong with this. Richter's model for the film was Diva, for the look of the film. He wanted to have that gorgeous, suffused with color, lots of dust in the air, you know, that incredible lighting that Cronenweth was so brilliant at. And Cronenweth said, no, Begelman said, no, we want it to look more like Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Rick and Earl fought and fought and fought, and they just lost. They didn't have enough power to withstand this. So instead of Cronenweth, we got Fred Kronenkamp, who shot Patton. And look at the difference. I mean, what you end up with is the thing that we all love about Buckaroo Banzai, this kind of cheesy, almost two-dimensional cinematography. But that's not what they wanted at all.
Right.
They had to accede to that.
Jordan, can you wake him up? Or ask him if he's on narcotics or something, the guy next to him? Yeah, it's like he's snoring louder than I'm speaking.
That's when I started talking.
Yeah, Jordan shot about almost a half. I think he almost shot a half. And that's, they didn't know what they had. The producers didn't know what they had.
They didn't know what it was.
And another interesting thing is that Bruce McNall, who, bless his heart, who owned the studio at the time, who later went to jail, but he was a friend of mine, and he benefited the film, would call me up and say, look, the Hunt brothers are sending their friends from Credit Lyonnais, you know, to come and watch the film being made. I get these every 2 weeks. The World Bank, Credit Lyonnais, I don't know, UBS, you know, Bank of America. These guys who are in bed with the money capitals of the world would come to watch the film, and a film being shot. Now, as John will tell you, he's on a movie set, at any point in time, there's only 5 people working. And there's 180 people sitting around, you know, doing bingo or, you know, or playing poker or smoking cigars.
Looks like yo-yo dying.
Yeah, it was like, exactly. And so I try to be the host, and I take these guys who are Begelman's buddies and these finance guys, you know, around. I said, look at this set, this is the rocket ship, and this, you know, I don't know what the hell I was talking about. And all I could see is them going, you know, watching dollar signs like a slot machine go through their, you know, eyes, going, hey, what are those guys doing? Oh, those guys are like grips. I said, well, what do they do? It's other than sit around. I said, well, no, they're going to move in a minute, you know, as soon as we switch. And you can just see that the idea of putting money into a film was as far away from reality as these guys could conceive. And subsequently, you know, that's how much the producing line was really in touch with the film. You know, these people wouldn't understand. I didn't understand the film, so why were they sending these people around?
Wait, what was the Bruce McNall connection? Was
Bruce
he
McNall owned the
Sherwood? Sherwood?
Yeah.
And Bruce McNall's the guy that brought Gretzky to the Kings in Los Angeles, right?
Correct.
Wow, man.
Yeah. And also the guy that introduced me to ancient Roman coins and hence I'm finishing a PhD.
Is that really? Because he was into rare coins.
Yeah,
That's one of the great-
that was the source of his first millions.
Yeah,
He was
I
Norman
think you're
Fox.
just-
By the way, aren't you a Fulbright scholar?
Yes, and a brain surgeon.
Yeah. You know, the thing is that I just applied for a Fulbright on behalf of the state of California and UCLA, and I got all this support to apply for a Fulbright. He is a Fulbright scholar, this guy. So give it up for that. How many active Fulbright scholars, you know? I don't know. It's a thing.
I used to think you were a genius actor, but it just seems like you're playing yourself now, man. Like a genius guy.
No.
With multi-talents.
Well, I did play the trumpet, and I did sing, and I did play the solo, and then it was tweaked again and again by the guy who did Flashdance, Michael. Michael's. Yeah, exactly. He tweaked it up. So I got to do all the music stuff, and that's what was thrilling to me. To do that, because I started off life as a musician and with the music school and so forth, and still play with Jeff when we can in a group. But so yeah, you got to do it all, man. You know, just
that dude's now wide awake in the front row. Because he got fucking bitch slapped by RoboCop.
So don't fall asleep while I'm talking about. You'll go to the back of the class if you're gonna do that.
Do you remember, John, the first time you saw the completed film?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it by myself. I think I'd been overseas on film or something, and so I think I saw it just with my wife and my son in a big empty screening room at Fox. Everybody else had seen it, and I was absolutely thrilled with it, completely thrilled. And I think that was still in the stage when I thought we'd made the next Star Wars. I'm such an optimist.
What did your wife and kid think?
You know, it's so funny. Both my sons think it's the best acting on film I've ever done. Go figure. And I'm not displeased that that's their opinion. It's certainly the biggest, if not the best.
And was this coming on the heels of two back-to-back Oscar nominations,
Yeah.
right? It was for Terms of Endearment.
Garp and then Terms of
Garp and then
Endearment,
Terms of
this, yes. with Footloose and Twilight Zone mixed in. It all happened, like all my really great movies were made in about a 3-year stretch. I consider this one of them.
Did you sit in the theater when you watched it the first time and you were like, nomination number 3, coming up?
But there was this choosy sort of horror and fantasy award. I thought I had a shot at that. But curiously, I did win that, but for Twilight Zone.
Later on?
For the same year, yeah.
Oh my God, that's right, you're like geek royalty, man. And both of you are Dexter people now as well.
Dexter.
We live!
Oh, man.
We live!
Yeah. That was a blast.
That's something.
Yeah, what a great set that is, Dexter.
Yeah. We haven't talked about it.
No.
You were great.
Yeah, well, I thought you were phenomenal. I just
you were
said,
incredible.
but-
You were just incredible.
no, you. Actually, the first time I saw John Lithgow was in The Changing Room, and on Broadway.
As a show?
Oh, John Lithgow is a formidable. Have you ever seen?
That was a play in the changing room?
Has anyone ever seen? Like, in my theater days, of correspond with John's theater days, and my theater days is thinned out, but to see John Lithgow on stage is powerful stuff.
Well, when I saw you in Streamers.
Yeah, he's doing streamers. That's right. Yeah.
Why don't you guys just get a fucking room around?
Well, you brought up Dexter.
That's true, very, very true. All right, take me back to the moment when, did they do a premiere for a movie like this? In a world where they're like, we don't know how to market it.
They did a premiere for the movie here in New York that I went to, and on that night, a girl walked up and said, gee, I really liked your movie. Have you got another stick of that bubble gum you're chewing? That's what she said. I really liked that movie, but have you got another stick of that bubble gum you're chewing? And it was Madonna. And that's the first time I ever met Madonna. I said, sure. And, Roseanne
Arquette? They were working on
said, you know
that.
who that is? I said, no. She said, that's the next super rock star in the world. Oh, really? Sure.
Did you like, well, I play a horn myself.
Yeah, I felt the same way as John. I thought I was absolutely in love with the movie. I was stunned by it, and at the same time, there was some voice in the back of my head saying, hey, is everybody going to get this? So I reiterate what John said about you, is that you know, it's for the boy. It's, you know, it's the dense flick, and it's fun and it's unique. You know,
I do remember that there were certain people who did think it was a huge smash. It was completely packed in New York, late into the night.
Yeah.
I was not in New York, but I got all, people were saying, my God, this film is huge.
Yeah.
People are crazy about this movie. And, you know, you sort of nursed hopes that it would spread and spread and grow. And in a sense, it did.
It just took a little longer.
But as far as Hollywood was concerned, it was a flop. And you know, the boys really did intend to do a sequel. They really were thinking about that fabulous stroke of arrogance. You know, look for the next one. They meant that. They meant that. They had it all planned. Hopefully with other producers. I mean, it was kind of poignant because they were such good-hearted guys and they had such a clear vision and such passion for what they were doing. And those are the people you always want to work with. And they were overwhelmed by the things they had to negotiate.
They were, I mean, now I hope they see, and I'm sure they do with time, they were right. They were just so far ahead of the fucking curve that it took people like almost a decade, if not two, to kind of catch up to what they were doing. At what point does the movie then, like it comes out, doesn't really do much, and goes away? When does it start re-entering your lives? How soon before you start hearing people go like, oh my God, man, I love Buckaroo Banzai?
For me, it has absolutely never stopped.
There never was a pause.
Yeah.
There never was a pause. I mean, it wasn't a blockbuster, it wasn't a hit. And like John said, my commercial value as a movie opens, you know, it was a deadbeat. And it did get caught between Diller and Alan Ladd Jr., I think. But even Diller is talked about it as if it's like his film. And so, but I never heard anybody, there was never a lull as far as people saying, wow. That's the interesting thing about it. By all accounts, the flattery that has been thrown my way since the movie, you'd think it was a huge hit.
Yeah.
Because as many people talk about that as any movie I've ever done.
And they're all, you know, I'm greeted frequently by people who say, oh, I loved you in such and such. And it's been quite a variety of things. The coolest people, you know what they're going to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely know.
The hipsters, man.
The hipsters, you know, absolutely.
Yeah, down on the
It's usually dudes eating Twinkies.
Listen, should we field a couple of questions?
Yeah, that's what's next.
Right.
We're going to them next.
All right, I leave it to you, man. You're in charge.
Not at all, you're in charge, boss. That's all.
The guy that drives a jet car through a mountain is not lacking in control freedom.
Let's open it up to you guys, man. Questions from the audience. I'm gonna hit you with a mic if that's cool. Unless is there a roaming one? If not, I can just do this. Okay.
Oh my God, he's got the shirt on.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah, whenever I've seen what these people got, I saw a guy the other day came up to a fundraiser and he had a tattoo of RoboCop on his neck. And he just, hey, look at this. And about that time I'm thinking, okay, where's the Glock 9mm that's gonna come out of your head? Go ahead.
Not so much a question, but a comment. My name is Gareth Skarka. I'm a writer and a game designer. I have a license through Mac and Rick to do a Buckaroo Banzai role-playing game. And I just wanted to tell you, to echo Kevin's thing, I think, you know, they used to say that the Velvet Underground, only like 1,000 people ever saw him play, but every one of those 1,000 people started a band. And I think that Buckaroo Banzai had the same effect on creative types. Anybody who saw that movie and had it burrow into our heads, we went out and created stuff, so thank you.
You're welcome.
There's one up there.
Did you get any feedback from the Jamaican people about?
Did you get any feedback from the Jamaican people?
Did you? No?
No, I got feedback from American blacks though that thought it was like so racially hip, right? That there's a metaphor in there. If you notice, the bad guys are redneck aliens. I mean, are you getting that at all? Like, they're like, and they literally have red.
And the blacks are the good ones.
Yeah, the blacks are the good guys, yeah.
And I would say, no, that's, by the way, is Cara Lumley, who plays the good John Parker.
Just sort of echoing what he had said about the movie and the impact that it has had on people who like it and creative types. At the time, there was a newsletter that was put out by some of the people at Fox that was then continued by some fans after that, and then has come back bits and pieces over time, over the 20th anniversary, whatever, and all that kind of stuff. And what we had done is taken some of the best articles from that in the last 10 years and threw them together for this, and they were out in the lobby, and hopefully there are still some there if you didn't grab one. But we wanted to make sure that you guys got a copy of the newsletter. And at the time that the DVD came out, the special edition with all the extra footage, we had an article in Video Watchdog. So we've got you on the cover of Video Watchdog, and you on the cover of the newsletter. And I wanted you guys to have copies so you could hopefully enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's so weird, it's true. Like, it is a movie that really, as you were saying, it sparked creativity. I look at this movie and its genre-defying manner as the movie that, to me, influenced probably Red State a lot. This movie I just did recently. It's a movie that, when I watch this movie, it just drops you in the middle of it, and you're expected to catch up. It doesn't spoon feed the movie to you. So watching this movie, man, very influential to me. I'm going to do a gross plug for myself. We're in the middle of the New York Film Festival right now, a world away, in Spain. The Sitges Film Festival is happening, and they gave Red State the best film of the festival. Thank you. It's not self-serving. It comes down to this. That shit don't happen unless I sit down as a 14-year-old and watch a movie that says, I don't give a shit, you'll catch up sooner or later. Think, buddy, think. Like, it doesn't, most audience members kind of get ahead of the movie as they watch it. We've been watching variations of the same themes and stories for so many years that as you sit there and watch a flick, you're like, oh, I know what's gonna happen, this is gonna happen, this guy's involved, I bet you that's the killer. And this is a movie you could never do that with. And it's inspiring for that reason. It makes you believe, like, hey man, if they can do it and it stands the test of time, maybe I could do it too. So I thank you guys for that. Let's go back to the audience right there. So, yeah.
I think the movie was so ahead of its time in that particular area. It would have benefited enormously by the digital age.
Yeah.
Because word would have gotten out.
Yeah.
You made that point in introducing the film. Everybody would know about Buckaroo Banzai, and everybody would know how cool it was.
And they would talk about weird things, like there's a scene where the dude's like, what's with the watermelon? And he's like, I'll tell you later. There'd be so much meme-worthy stuff, like the idea of no matter where you go, there you are. It's full of stuff that the internet would absolutely love.
Yeah.